collaborative working is something we can take a huge lead from America in terms of how we work in the UK. Now, I find when I go out to work and build consortiums and go to work with partners, sometimes it can be quite difficult to set up these working relationships which benefit each side, and it can be quite laborious to try and engage with other organisations who may not understand the benefit of working together. So in America, it was really interesting for me to see how different organisations work together, different pots of funding work together, and different community groups also, and people from very diverse backgrounds work together when they're looking to address homelessness and poverty-related issues. So I got to go to, really when I first arrived in California, I went to a conference called Housing 2, which was held in Silicon Valley for the reason that is the most expensive place to buy a home in America. And so Housing 2 thought, if we can fix homelessness in Silicon Valley, we can fix it anywhere. And so it said, let's hold this conference where we can just innovate and we can reimagine the housing system here in Silicon Valley, and we can bring all the bright housing minds and entrepreneurs together and see if we can bring some social innovators and some community leaders and some homeless people, and let's get everybody under one roof and see if we can come up with some really great solutions to homelessness and affordable housing issues. And it certainly did. And I was totally in awe of seeing a lady called Professor Anya Roy speak, who I think is on my screen at the moment, and she was phenomenal in terms of looking at a new approach to address homelessness and looking at poverty on a wider scale. We looked at different housing solutions. I looked at a place called Donna Lofts, which is a new governmental supported housing scheme, which is looking at, a part affordable housing scheme, and looking at addressing in Silicon Valley, they have a wider need for property, not just affordable property. They have a shortage of housing across the board. So it's they're looking at meeting housing need and a diverse housing need too, which is interesting. So looking at collaborative working too, one of the case studies I want to draw attention to here is Back on My Feet. Now, Back on My Feet are a phenomenal organisation, which you must look them up on Google and find out a little bit more about them. Don't just take my word for it. They are an organisation which is engaging with corporates, volunteers, the public, private, third sectors, everyone and anyone. They're getting them involved in combating homelessness, and they're doing this in a really, really clever way, which I love. And that is by using a common bond and a common goal and a common theme and a common joy and a common pleasure, and that is running. And everybody that I met in conjunction with Back on My Feet in New York was obsessed with running. They're all very clean living, and they love to look after themselves and their bodies and treat them like temples. And I met a few vegans, and it was a really, really inspiring environment, I'm sure, for anybody who is going through a turbulent time, to be supported by these types of people who can help to pick them up and give them a new outlook on life. So Back on My Feet, as I say, you must look them up, because the engagement that they have with via the power of running extends so much further than that, and that's just the tool to get people in the door and get the rapport built and get, as I say, this common goal and this common bond. And from there, these relationships form, and these peer-to-peer kind of mentee relationships, which is, you'll find out later as we go through the training, is so important in helping people rehabilitate, is giving them people to aspire to be like, or people to look up to, or people to be guided by in some way, or people just to be a peer with, people to be able to chat with, or people of their own age or their own interests. So Back on My Feet gives this platform, and it takes out the awkwardness of if you're trying to volunteer and I don't know if people who are watching have ever volunteered before, and you go along and you're supporting someone and it's, hi, how are you? And sometimes it can be a bit awkward. Well, if you're going to run together, this kind of takes out, because I'll be dying on the pavement and the person I'm supporting is going to have to like help to give me CPR and bring me back to life. So it's going to break down all the barriers of just going sitting having a cup of tea with somebody. So I love this, and some of the members of Back on My Feet have ran hundreds and thousands of miles, and they run marathons. And now I can see, I've seen a lot of people that are really engaged with some amazing moving on opportunities and are in employment. And again, this is made possible. Back on My Feet have the success they do via the strength in their relationships and collaborative working. And one of the great organisations, I'm going to touch on 2 organisations that Back on My Feet is supported by, but I know they work with lots more. One of the organisations, the first organisation that I saw the engagement with Back on My Feet was the Marriott hotel chain, which is an international brand which wants to enhance its corporate social responsibility, and it wants to give opportunities to its staff to be able to be involved with its community, in the community in which they're working, and improve it, and be part of a thriving and growing community, and also give back to those who are less fortunate and may need some support. And the Marriott are able to support Back on My Feet in various ways, and not only do they support them with fundraising and corporate sponsorship that way, but they also support with practical assistance, and they run work programs with Back on My Feet alumni. They hosted, while I was actually in America, I was so fortunate to be able to go and see the Back on My Feet annual fundraiser and ball. And this was an event that saw the CEO of the Marriott become honoured for his work with his philanthropic work with Back on My Feet, because Arnes has just done so much fantastic work since he's become involved as the Marriott being a corporate sponsor. So again, have a Google on that and have a look into how that's all created. And when we talk about collaborative management later on, we will talk about how to form relationships with corporate sponsors and how you can look at creating benefit for each party. So you get something you need, but also they get something they need too, and nobody suffers too much in the process. And there's no, not always an exchange of funds or money either. So another corporate sponsor of Back on My Feet, which is a really amazing corporate sponsor, which I love and I'm a massive fan of, is Bombers Socks. And I try to be always wearing Bombers socks at the moment, but unfortunately they're not in the UK yet, so I'm hoping they will come soon. And Bombers Socks is a designer sock brand which is jumped on the bandwagon of the buy one give one movement, and they were crowdfunded via the American almost version of Dragon's Den, which is called Shark Tank, and they were able to incorporate that way. And they wanted to, for every pair of designer socks that they sold, they wanted to donate a pair of socks to someone in need or a homeless person. And one of the ways they do this is via Back on My Feet, and they engage really well. And Back on My Feet have really benefited from working in this manner with Bombers, because they've actually moved into Bombers office space, and they're all sharing an office space and a creative environment together, which they're all working from, and that's working really well. And I got to go and see that in action, and it's another way of showing how you can be creative with resource sharing, and it doesn't always have to be an exchange of money, which can benefit what you're doing. And in this way, Back on My Bomber Socks, not only have they donated over 1 million pairs of socks since their incorporation to the homeless, they also have supported Back on My Feet in lots of other ways too, and they've created value in lots of different ways, and in return they've been able to promote themselves as a philanthropic mission-led business, which has led them to become more popular within the press, and they've become a company that the public take interest in because they're really keen on what they're doing, and they like the innovativeness of their business model, and they're always bringing out new and exciting products, and keeping their marketing is really great. And again, that benefits back on my feet because they're all interlinked and they're all supporting each other. So as we saw this partnership working very well in San Francisco, and we had the likes of Project Homeless Connect and Tender Cuts and Lava May and Twitter, and I think Google's involved, and there's all these different organizations that are all combined. Again, in New York, we have the same kind of system going on where we've got the likes of the Marriott that are working with Back on My Feet, that are working with Bombers, and there's all these different organisations and private, public, third sector organisations that are all chipping in together to help and provide a whole and rounded service, which is really efficient and it's not too troubling for one party. So collaborative working is really, really important, and I'm going to be promoting that masses as we move forward. And I'm looking forward to sharing more techniques for creating collaborative management relationships when you're building your own social property investment projects. And I'm going to talk much more about that in that part of the training when we reach collaborative management. So for now, we'll move on to the next part, which is innovation in design and build.